Well, good morning. About 3 years ago, Dale Doherty, who was founder of the Maker Faire, and myself, and some folks at the Institute for the Future, invented a new word. Can we go back one slide, please? We invented this word, Maker City. It brought together the concept that the Maker movement is about civic engagement and creating. First of all, who here has been to a Maker Faire? Okay, so you have a sense. You come together and you can co-create. But it also is about the future of technology and manufacturing. It provides kind of hope at a time, in fact, when we have a president who cares a lot about manufacturing. So at that time, we had, working through the nation's mayors, 100 US cities took a pledge to become a maker city. That is, 100 cities focused on things like local maker spaces, STEM, working on local manufacturing, education that would work on all of this. 100 mayors took the pledge, and we followed them, and they're doing extraordinary things which, if they scaled, are remarkably hopeful. Now you might say, how did you get 100 mayors to do something new? Fortunately, this nation has had a maker-in-chief, and at the White House Makers Fair 2 years ago, we had convened all of these cities and began to collaborate and work with them. What I want to share with you today is kind of what's come of that, an agenda it suggests, which interestingly may take off in our current environment because of our new president, and what it means for manufacturing. So when I say maker goods to you, you may think local or artisanal. But it turns out that making is very key to prototyping, to kind of where new products come from in Silicon Valley. It also turns out for high value products that could be prosthetics, or they could be electronics, or they could be kind of other products that behave differently, those can be very much made in the US. And I would suggest that if we look at what this means, there's an authentic new American supply chain that can be built not out of protectionism, but out of kind of what our talents can do. I'll give you an example of that. In New York City, the original innovation district was the garment district. They were dense, and that was really the basis of New York's economy. It kind of dissipated and basically went away. But in Brooklyn, it's been reconstituted with a 400,000 square foot facility called Manufacture New York. The idea was, what if you could put contract manufacturers, designers, as well as researchers that are working on the future in fashion in one place? And the advantage is 40% of fashion is often written down, thrown out, the wrong size, it didn't fit. And then when you go to the 30 points that goes through a retail channel, that's a lot of funds that are actually available if you had shorter supply chains, more local, more responsive, that could give more sustainable wages. Not because of charity, but the business worked better. And that's one example of an investment that New York is making. The Brooklyn Navy Yard, which employed 70,000 people at its height at the end of World War II and then lay fallow, is now 3.5 million square feet, going to 5 million square feet, with a combination of manufacturing and design that creates jobs that aren't $30,000 service jobs, but closer to $70,000 manufacturing jobs. Brooklyn has 3 technology clusters, and in the middle, 20,000 units of public housing. So the artistry is, how do you do the apprentices and the education and the kind of engagement to lift that up? But that's an example of something that works and how we're figuring it out. Across the nation, local cities are beginning to promote local goods. Now, it turns out you get higher margins. When you go to SFO, you'll see SF made in the duty-free shop. And tomorrow, the mayors of San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, and Fremont are all getting together to focus on the regional manufacturing cluster. And it turns out by having a regional focus like this, you can, in fact, kindle local industry. Very important, particularly at this time when it's on the agenda. And this is also good for big companies. General Electric makes appliances in Louisville. It costs about $40 million to bring a new appliance to market. And they're doing something a little bit differently. They created a maker space with a whole bunch of equipment where students, designers, appliance nuts could come in, come up with ideas, bring products to market, put it on a Kickstarter, and GE is learning from a community.
So when we say hack the home, we really mean it. Our hope is that you might take an oven or a refrigerator or a microwave, go ahead and break it, because we know you're going to come out with something cool from that.
Most hackathons come from a software perspective. I work on my computer, we work at our machine, and you could really do that about anywhere. What we've done here with this facility is we've tied in mechanical engineers, we've tied in designers. This is big open collaboration.
There's a number of us at GE that have been interested in coffee and coffee roasting. and there's a lot of products on the market for roasting like 4 ounces at once. The 5-pound ones are like $10,000. There's nothing in the middle. Last night we roasted 2 roasts. The first one we didn't quite get far enough, and the second one was actually over roasted. Finally this morning we decided to go directly to a relay system, made some changes, and our roast we just did is fantastic.
I think the next set of American manufacturing is going to be more niche, diverse. It's not, I'm an electrical engineer or I'm a software engineer, I'm a maker.
This is further proof that the maker movement is blown up. In 10 years, we're going to look back and be like, I can't believe we did all that stuff.
You know, this movement today is where open source was 10 years ago, but you can imagine different forms of production, say community spaces where students and designers and artists, entrepreneurs are working alongside of big companies. Flextronics has a lab here in San Francisco where Silicon Valley types come in, come up with a prototype and do manufacturing up to 1,000 units here without having to go to China. Now, by the time you get to tens of thousands, you go to China, but the fact is that people are investing in local supply chain. And of course, Tesla is a great example. The most interesting thing about Tesla is not only are the cars built there, but the 300 acres around it that used to be a no man's land in the old auto plant is now a mixed-use urban development, literally a city with manufacturing in it. This forces us to reconsider our notions of what progress is, because we've seen progress as a global supply chain, race to the bottom, where can it be done cheaper, but perhaps products now are in fact more customized, have more local content, still automated, but with kind of local labor as part of them. And boy, this changes education a great deal, because kids get really excited when you turn them on to this. And when you do things like smash together art and computer science and shop, and then take it to a rural area in Pennsylvania.
The Droid Factory is a combination of 3 classes that were previously separated: the art room, the tech ed room, and computers.
All 3 teachers collaborate
and bring together art and engineering.
When it's hands-on learning, it's something that you want to do.
What we need are measurements. When you have a board, take a look at your board.
I think it adds to our traditional wood shop, metal shop.
Students are programming interactive games, building robots.
Do they want to do 3D printing? Do they want to do painting? Do they want to do sculpture?
This is not a gifted program. It's not an after-school activity. Every kid is getting this in our school.
That's the Elizabeth Forward School District in rural Pennsylvania. When they did that, test scores went up, dropouts went down, and through the school district, that's propagating elsewhere. And it's also a community thing. Here you see on the right that drawing. 2nd grader drew that little picture of Stinky, and the 8th graders have to figure out how to render it as a product. And out of this comes things like building high-value things like prosthetics, literally students in colleges building stuff like that. At Case Western in Cleveland, this facility attracts students, about 25,000 visitors, and most are from the surrounding communities where they're learning these new skills. Now, that's important because this last election was lost, or won, depending on how you look at it, by 100,000 votes in 3 Rust Belt areas in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And we know how to show the love there and how to engage people and kind of show a community path to the future. That's what a lot of this is. And how does that happen? Well, in Wenatchee, Washington, which was an eastern Washington state, feeling disconnected and seeing that this movement was there, a high school student brought this stuff to his town, brought maker fairs, forums, and then they had the team work on workforce development. One student made the difference. When I wrote The Maker City, a couple of students in Buffalo, New York, told me they wanted to come and both introduce this and then work on developing local small businesses because they thought old-fashioned economic development, just trying to lure a plant to town, wasn't going to work, and they, the young people, wanted to see it different.
My name is Mark Roth.
I'm going to skip that. You may say to me, Pete, boy, the tech industry comes up with some new idea here. How do we know this will work? Well, why in 1922 in New York was the America's Making Exposition shown at the Armory? Well, it turns out this was kind of back when America believed in manufacturing stuff, but we had a problem. Cities were growing, there were a lot of immigrants, and we were uncomfortable about it. And New York pointed out that everyone has a great talent in this pluralistic world of making. Why, the Italians can make statues, the Yugoslavians can work with wood. And the point is, there's something very Tocquevillian connective about people working together and showing all of their talents. We've just been through an election about fear. This is a movement about hope. Those 100 cities are at work and hopeful. When you talk to people locally, it's really tough to find things that are a lot of fear. In a way, we're moving towards perhaps a sense of economic populism. That is, we now have leadership that believes in more local content and more local labor. And once we work through protectionism or perhaps lots of infrastructure, we're left with how do you build an authentic supply chain that honors people, uses technology. In a way, that's what this movement is. As a nation, we've been here before. Many people may remember in history that, in the Depression, there was the WPA. It was a giant government program that tried to provide jobs. We're kind of beyond that. But maybe we would have the Industrial Maker Administration, not so much top-down, but as a connection point of lots of innovators and people working together. And there's so much talent and capability there. That's why I kind of think where we're headed is a connection between universities, schools, local manufacturers, perhaps new American policy, building on a movement that's an authentic wave. You can argue that America's at a frontier again, and when we're in a frontier, things are difficult, and we have to figure it out. Arguably, it's what we're best at. I think this is a movement that you can get behind on the left or the right. It kind of looks progressive and new. It's local. It's bottom up. It's something we call the Maker City. It's inclusive. And I'm thrilled to share it with you. Our agenda is to both get the word out, do some policy development, move more capital to it, because this is something that's happening, and I hope we can all do it together. Thank you.